Hi, Mandy Curry with Healthy Kids Inc. Welcome back. Okay, so for today's recipe, we are featuring a homemade hummus, but this one has a twist to it. We are featuring sprouted garbanzo beans. We love to sprout any type of beans or seeds, and this is sprouting garbanzo beans. And anything sprouted is really good for your body. It's a lot easier for your body to digest. So here we're gonna walk you through the process that we took then to go ahead and get these sprouted. So we featured this before, but this is our sprouting jar that we use. We went ahead and purchased some garbanzo beans. These are really good for sprouting. So here's an example of what the garbanzo bean looks like before we start the sprouting process. So all that we do is we use our sprouting jar, we fill it up with our garbanzo beans, about a cup or so. They're gonna grow considerably in there, so you wanna make sure that you give them plenty of room. Then we're gonna do the same sprouting process. They need to soak for a little under a day, then we're gonna rinse them, then we're gonna add a little bit more water, rinse them again. We go through this process for a couple of days until they start to sprout. So here you can see this is the start of the sprouting process. They increase quite a bit in size over the course of a couple of days of the soaking process and the rinsing process. And then here's the process once they start to sprout. Now the whole goal is to get them to where the sprout is about 1/4 of an inch long. These we let sprout just a little too long, and you can see that's a little bit longer than it should be. But you can see what the differences are. This is our garbanzo bean that you would get from a can, and they are perfectly good to use. And in fact, you can get an organic can of garbanzo beans for just $1. So that too is a very inexpensive thing that you can purchase, but you can see how the size varies between the different stages. So here we have our raw version, then we have the canned, and then once we've sprouted them, you can see how the sizes change a little bit. Now, it's also very important that you don't let them sprout for too long. So if within your jar you have too many in there and they can't breathe, then they can actually start to spoil. So as you're sprouting them, just make sure that you don't have too many in there, they have plenty of room to breathe, and also make sure that you're using them after about 4 to 5 days of the sprouting process before they start to get too long then. Okay, now for the hummus. There are a host of different recipes that you could use for this. We're making it super simple. We're gonna be using a little bit of our tahini, which is just a ground sesame seed paste. We're gonna be using a few cloves of garlic, about 1/2 of a fresh lemon, and then we're gonna be using a little bit of salt, pepper, and extra virgin olive oil. That's all that it takes to pull this off. Okay, so we're going in with our garbanzo beans. Now again, if you didn't want to sprout these, you could just use these from a can. You also could go ahead and cook these if you wanted before we used them as hummus, but we're not actually gonna do that today. This is just gonna be a raw hummus. We're gonna use the sprouted garbanzo beans as they are. So again, you would have that, or you have the option of just using a can of your regular garbanzo beans from the store. Okay, now we're gonna add our tahini. So this is about 2 tablespoons worth. Now again, this is one of those recipes that you kind of taste as you go, and you can adjust as well. But it's also really hard to mess this up. So we're in with our tahini. We're gonna add 2 cloves of garlic. Do this to your taste. If you don't like a lot of strong garlic, then obviously you're gonna wanna do a little less. We're just gonna do a little bit of minced garlic in here. All right, now we're gonna go in with our 1/2 of a fresh squeezed lemon. And now 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And you're gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. And you're gonna add a little bit more after you finish this. That's all we're gonna do, is just pulse this up. Okay, so that takes care of our hummus. It's actually pretty simple. Now again, if this consistency is a little too thick for you, you can keep on pulsing it, add a little bit more oil or water, but this works well for us. So hope that you enjoyed this. You can pair this alongside any type of vegetable that you like. You can also use some pita bread or some chips to serve alongside with it too. All right, so be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel below, and also check us out at healthykidsinc.com. We'll see you again real soon. Example of what it looks like before we start this. Ha!